Okay, Kat, we can start.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Catherine Page, the founder and director of ACTT, which stands for Agents of Change Training Team, Social Change Warriors. We are a brand new startup, hoping to soon go nonprofit. We are a group of social workers who work together for social good. We are forming webinars, training seminars, video casts, webcasts, and interviews like this one today, where we are talking about the grand challenges that are out there in the world and how we can make a difference, how our citizens can come together and make a difference for social justice and social change. So we're going to have a conversation today about the gun violence in America. So I wanted to, first of all, thank you so much for finding us on our YouTube channel. I hope you'll share this with your colleagues and fellow community members. This is our webpage, Social Change Warriors. We have a lot of information here for you. We have a training request form. We have articles, webinars, documentaries that my team and I have produced. And we would love for you to check us out and let us know how we can help you in your community. So we're going to get started. I'm going to introduce everybody that's going to be in on the conversation today. And I'll give Marie a second to bring us back to the Brady Bunch room where we can all see each other. There we go. All right. Now, I'm not sure. My camera seems to be blocked, Marie. Okay, I see what's going on. There we go. All right. Hi, everyone. So I just want to introduce Ashman, if you want to give a wave to the audience today. Anna, Jeffrey, Christopher, and we have by phone Janice and Robert. And everyone in the room other than Ashman and Christopher are part of my Social Warriors volunteer team. Ashman is a former student of mine. I was lucky enough to get to be his field instructor. Christopher is my son, and I'm lucky enough to be his mom. So we have a great group of people in the room today, all with varying backgrounds. So when you first respond today to one of our questions that we're going to put up, just give a brief introduction, where you're calling in from and what you're doing right now to help with social justice and social change. And so Marie, if you want to go ahead and give us our deck, and we will share this with our audience. We have a nice little outline prepared for you today while we have our discussion. And we're talking today about gun violence in America. Obviously, you all know what a important topic this is, and how it affects the lives of so many people. And we just, unfortunately, were witness to that again in the last month with the shooting at the grocery store in Buffalo, New York, and the gun violence in Texas at the elementary school. So like I said, once a week, we're doing video casts where I am interviewing and highlighting the life and work of social workers in the field and nonprofit workers in the field who are out there every day doing the best they can to help create change and affect social justice. So we are talking today about this subject. I'm waiting for her to bring back up our deck, but I have it here too, Marie, so I can just follow along as well. So we have a jarring number that we have to share with you, and it's hard to even say it, but 212, we've had 212 mass shootings this year in the US. That's as of May 25th, 2022. This averages out to about 10 a week. So that is a extremely high number. It should be a very disturbing number to anyone out there, whether you are in favor of gun ownership with restrictions, without restrictions, or not at all, or whatever your political stance on gun ownership is. That number should really upset you and hurt you. I was able to find a poem thanks to my good friend Kathy Coppins. She sent me this poem this morning that someone wrote and published on Facebook, so I wanted to share that poem with all of you. It basically, I think it's one slide back, Marie, the poem. There you go. So this was written by Amanda Gorman. She wrote A Hymn for the Hurting. Everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, minds made muddied and mute. We carry tragedy, terrifying and true, and yet none of it is new. We knew it as home, as horror, as heritage. Even our children cannot be children, cannot be. Maybe everything hurts, our hearts shadowed and strange, but only when everything hurts may everything change. And I really thought that was poignant and beautiful. And I wanted to give this young woman credit for publishing this on social media. She's actually raised money to help change the laws involving gun ownership to make try to help make us a safer country. So with that being said, I want to start out, we can go back to our 212 number. And if we go down to our next slide, Marie, I want to get some comments from all of you in the room. We ended 2021 with 693 mass shootings. Anna was able to reference this from Gun Violence Archive. She's included the, what are those called, Anna?
The QR code. So
Thank you.
You pull out the camera on your phone and take a picture of it, you can actually see the reference and go directly to the source of the information.
That's fantastic. So
throughout the whole presentation.
Yeah, so Anna, I want to start this with you because you put this information, all this research together for us. I want to start out with you and give me your thoughts about this when you research this, and then we'll go around the room and have everybody share their thoughts about these particular numbers.
I mean, it's heartbreaking and shocking, and to see them actually on paper, see the rise even since COVID. It's heartbreaking. And, you know, there is a sense where we kind of get numb to it, but to actually sit down and look at all of this information and put it all together is just, you know, you have to find a way to cope with it. And I think a lot of us just kind of turn that off and we say, oh, these are just numbers. But when you think about every one of these is a person who will never be the same, a family who is no longer whole.
Yes, Marie, I'd like to go to slide number, Yes. So I'd like us all to take a look at this slide for a moment that Anna put together for us, a public health crisis. 2020 firearm related injuries became the leading cause of death among children and adolescents 1 through 19. So Marie, if you could, if everybody could just take a look at this for a minute, absorb it, and then let's come back to the room. And I want to go around and get everybody's thoughts on these first few slides of statistics that we're dealing with in our country. Thank you. Robert, I'd like to start out with you.
Okay, I'm listening.
Great. I wanted to get your thoughts, feelings, motions about the first few slides and some of the information that we've just shared.
It's a tough environment. You know, like I said, I did about 30 years in the military plus contract work. And of course, you know, having guns is accepted in the military. That's part of the lifestyle. Okay, it's no different than being a police officer or whatever the case may be. But then when you have civilians that have nothing to do with that, they're innocent bystanders, they're attending school, they're going shopping in the supermarket, they're walking down the street. Those numbers are astronomical. They're outrageous. I mean, I wish we had at one point put the numbers of people that died in combat, and you would see that those numbers are very, very close to that, especially in today's recent wars.
And we can do that, Robert. If you want to shoot those to me at some point, send those to me at some point. I will add those to the deck. We can get those added in there if you'd like to have that in there.
Yes, because I think when people see that, they might see that there's a big need, change needs to happen with people owning guns and how we respond to people having guns.
Right.
I am a gun owner, and I'm an avid gun owner. I'm an avid gun collector, and I don't want to take nobody's thunder here because I know it's going to be covered. But I've heard a lot of discussion about mental health. I heard a lot of discussion about, you know, the certain age limit and you know, the background checks. Well, as a gun collector, there is a pretty extensive background check. Now, as far as the mental health portion of it, how do you check that? How do you even confirm that? Because now you're going into the HIPAA law,
Yep.
and some might argue and say that should be allowed if you're going to own a gun. Okay, then now let's move on to the next question with that. You gave us 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and I don't want to stomp on anybody's territory, but
Oh, I'm
if it
going to
comes
come
back
back.
up, I'll be
We're
more than
going to,
happy to comment.
yeah, we're going to come back around to mental health for sure. So I wanted to get everybody's like initial thoughts about these numbers, and then we're coming back around to that, Robert. So you will be back on the air
Okay.
here very shortly. Janice,
Okay.
are you still with us, Janice?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. I just wanted to hear from you. I know, Janice, your background is in journalism. You worked for a newspaper for many years, and I know that you've covered a lot of cases that involved gun violence. So I definitely wanted to hear your opinion on these numbers.
My opinion on the numbers is, I think, kind of irrelevant. This country was founded on violence. This country was founded on people having superior firepower to the indigenous people who are here. That's how they got this country. This country was founded on a lot of different things that are not positive. And the country's not that old. Places in Europe are thousands of years old. Places in Asia are thousands of years old. This country is not even 300 years old yet. So if you look at development, if we were to look at the country as we would look at human development, this country is like 3 years old. So a 3-year-old doesn't have a conscience. 3-year-olds are sociopaths by nature. So, I mean, that's just, they haven't developed any empathy yet. Empathy is learned and, it has to be taught. It's a skill.
Right.
Some people never develop it, but that's because they don't have, their brain is wired differently. But these numbers don't surprise me because this country is not very serious about getting away from its roots. We love our guns. I'm a gun owner. I'm not a collector, but I like guns. I was around them responsibly because my mom was doing volunteer work for LAPD back when I was a little kid. So guns were a tool. I never saw them as anything else, but I also had parents to teach me a little something. And I also grew up in California where we have stricter gun laws. I have 2 handguns. I haven't used them or even oiled them in years. They're for home defense. Now, when it comes to rifles and things like that, I love to go to a range and shoot rifles. I think it's fun. It's a great sport. But yeah, guns are a tool. This country is not ready to address its past, and that's why we still have access to guns in many more permissive southern states.
Well, thank you, Janice. I always appreciate your outlook on things, and you always give us good history and background whenever you and I meet, and you did not fail me again. So thank you. It's a good bridge into introducing my son, Christopher Page, who is in the process of starting his own business called Concealed Carry Arts. So Chris, I'm going to let you tell everybody a little bit about that and why you feel that's so important.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Concealed Carry Arts is basically just a business I started up trying to give people, average people, who don't have any type of tactical training, military, police experience, whatever. Just we're looking to get into concealed carry, a platform where they can, better learn the fundamental skills, safety-wise and mechanics-wise of, operating a firearm, carrying a concealed firearm, on a daily basis as far as going outside and not just home defense. So there's a lot of things that go into that and a lot of things that you need to be, well practiced at and have a set of skills in order to be proficient in what you're doing and be safe at the same time. So I just started that business in order to give people an avenue and a platform to be able to better access that and give themselves a better opportunity to learn and progress in that area.
That's great. So do you feel that if people are more safe and take classes and learn how to operate handguns safely and respectfully, and like Janice said, for sport and for home defense, and you're trained, do you feel that is one of the big keys of keeping guns out of the hands of younger people and people that are trying to obviously do harm?
Well, I mean, there needs to be more knowledge overall. If you're going to own a firearm, then you need to accept the responsibility of, you know, what comes with it. It is a dangerous item, especially in the wrong hands of somebody. So taking the proper steps to ensure that your firearm doesn't fall into the wrong hands at time, and just having the knowledge of safety and overall, you know, carrying and operating of firearms is better to help people who have access to them, to keep them out of the hands of people that, you know, may have ill intentions when they get a hold of a firearm. So the better that we can do of educating young people and getting people away from this mindset of a gun is something that you solve your problems with, or something that you go to when you're angry. You know, we need to get people away from that mindset, because that's one of the biggest problems in my eyes. Is a lot of people now just want to look at the gun as that's the first thing they go to solve their issues, or, you know, to prove a point in the, you know, these mass shooters or whatever. Maybe they're just trying to prove a point, but why are people thinking this way? You know, we need to look into that a lot more. So
Good. Thank you, Christopher. I'm going to circle back around to you. I have another question, because your clients are going to be people that are gun owners and that are probably more pro Second Amendment, more pro less legislation, possibly. So I want to circle back to you about that. Marie.
Yeah, well, I kind of come from a little, I guess, different perspective. I mean, I grew up outside of the United States, where there's no guns at all. I grew up in Japan, and then, you know, moved over here, and I was still a child. But so I guess I come from a place, I don't have anything opposed to people owning guns. I don't feel comfortable with them in my house. That's my, you know, so that's I guess kind of where, and but on the flip side, I have no problem, like I will go with friends to a shooting range. I have no problems operating one, or that they exist, but I don't feel comfortable with them in my house. So, you know, like everybody has different kind of levels of, I think, comfort and boundaries with them. And so, you know, I guess I'm kind of at this place. There is a reasonable level, I think, that you know, should be legislated. And I think the laws that we have in place are archaic to a time that was unimaginable to the technology and advancement that, you know, these weapons have to this date. And if you look back and say, you know, when these laws were created, if the people created them knew, or we had the same technology then when these laws were written as we do now, would they be worded the same? You know, would that scope be more limited? Would it be broader? Would, you know, like how would the intended purpose of this legislation be changed? Because that's what so many people that are so blindly pro Second Amendment look at, is, you know, this is the basis of our rights. But you know, when these laws were created, the intention behind them, the purpose behind them, and the technology we had, and the damage that they could cause was so different.
Good. That's
So
a great point, Marie. Thanks for bringing that up. And it's a perfect segue into Ashman, because Ashman and I have had debates and talks about this before, and I know how he feels about the Second Amendment. So Ashman, this is, Marie just gave you a great segue here. You and her could have a nice debate about this, but let's talk with you a little bit about the numbers and what this first component of this first section of what we're all talking about.
And very quickly, to address what Marie just said, really just a short little comment. I do believe that the founders of this country actually did account for the advancement of technology. It's the reason why the Fourth Amendment applies to apartment buildings and vehicles, things that did not exist at the time of the founding of this nation. And at the same time, they did have very heavy firepower. At that time, they had the Puckle gun, they had machine guns, they had things that were very, things that basically we can't get, things that the general public can't even get now. Citizens had then, and those things, the Second Amendment applied to that. But really quickly, yes, I am pro Second Amendment. The numbers, I'd like to see a breakdown of those numbers. What is the criteria for a mass shooting? Do they include shootings that are
I think
three
it's
people?
4.
Okay.
Is it 3 or 4?
Does that
Anna? 4.
3 or 4? 4. Okay. Does that include, gang shootouts? Does that include, things that are crime related? For example,
for the gun violence
for
archive.
example, there was.
Hang on a sec. Hang on a second, Ashman.
Okay.
Anna's got some stuff. She did a lot of research on this, so let her kind of chime in here a minute.
If we pull up that slide again, if you go to the gun violence archive, it has all of that information. So you're free to.
Okay. And who runs the gun violence archive? Because for example, I wouldn't come to this debate quoting stuff from the NRA. Are our sources very biased, or they go into things like the FBI crime report and actually looking at the stats on how guns are used, because it's like 600 and something mass shootings, but then I look at the FBI crime report from 2019, which is the last one, and it shows anywhere from maybe 300 or 400 people that are killed with rifles of any kind. And there are a conservative estimate of rifles, 70 million in circulation. So if you look at 300 or 400 deaths, and trust me, I'm really not mitigating it, but if you look at 300 or 400 deaths compared to 370 million guns or 70 million rifles, it's less than 1%. It's a very small percentage. And granted, we know that guns, I'll agree with everybody and say that guns are inherently dangerous. So I'd like to see a breakdown of that. I do believe that gang violence is an issue of poverty. And a lot of those guns that are used are illegal guns. I know that in California, there's about 500 guns that made it to the streets because of police officers being irresponsible. One of the most famous ones, Katie Steinle, was killed right there on Pier 39 with a gun that was stolen from a cop because he left the gun in the car, being irresponsible. There's so much that I can say. I've considered all, and I'm pretty sure that there's not an argument that I'll hear today that I haven't heard before, and an argument that I haven't considered and really thought about and contemplated and really chewed on.
Thank you, Ashman.
So,
thanks for that. Jeffrey, I want to get your opinion on everything that's been said so far, and then we're going to bring up a few more statistics that Anna researched for us.
Well, first I want to say it's been a lot of interesting points. The numbers are overwhelming. I just, where I'm coming from is, feel like with these school shootings, schools are supposed to be sanctuaries. At least growing up, that's what going to school for me was a safe zone when I was growing up. And I know times are different, but I'm just trying to figure out what would the solution be. I think, as Robert said, with the background checks, they are extensive. I think that if you go further, you're getting into the HIPAA laws, but my point is, what can we do? At this juncture, it's become so commonplace that we are desensitized, and I look towards the politicians more than anybody else because, just throwing your support behind every time this happens, you want to say we need, condolences, you're sending that to the families. But what are you legislatively doing to mitigate some of this? Because if you look across the world, they don't have the numbers are not as large as here. And I wonder what they're doing. And I'm not saying we need to emulate them, but we need to come up with a solution that can, lessen this violence. I know it's gonna always be there. I'm not saying to gun owners don't have guns or whatever, but we need to figure out something viable, something more than this to deal with this issue. It's an epidemic
Yes.
that needs to be
Thank you,
stopped.
Jeffrey. Thank you, Jeffrey. And I love what you said about solutions, because that whether you're on the far right in your thinking about gun violence and gun laws, or you're on the far left thinking about gun violence and gun laws, we have to figure this out. There has to be a meeting of the minds, a way to legislate this and help to reduce these numbers, keep guns out of the hands of, like what Christopher said, out of the hands of people that don't respect them, that have a evil purpose for them, evil intentions with them. And social work's about solutions. We're about solutions. That's what we do. All social workers in every aspect of our jobs, whether we're micro social workers, we work with clients, we do one-on-one therapy, or whether we're community social workers, like most of us in this room, where we work in the communities on community interventions and social justice. We all want solutions. That's what we're trying to get to. So Marie, let's bring up our deck and look at some more interesting statistics and facts that Anna put together for us. And then we'll go back around the room again. So all of you mentioned a little bit about, guns and keeping them out of the hands of children, and children being the victim of gun violence is probably the worst possible thing, because they're innocent. They deserve to play not in fear in their neighborhoods. They deserve to go to school not in fear. They do not deserve to witness their classmates being slaughtered senselessly in gun violence. So we're looking at one out of 10 gun deaths are children age 19 or younger. It just breaks my heart. Since the Columbine attack, which it's hard to believe that was in 1999, nearly 300,000 students have been on a campus during a school shooting. And this is not happening in other countries. I'm really glad that Jeffrey brought that up. And that's a really big, we should always look to better ourselves, right? So yes, we're the United States of America. We're a great country, but why do we have so much more gun violence in other countries? There's a reason for that. And we should be trying to strive to be like that, right? 12 children die from gun violence in America. And another 32 are shot or injured. I mean, that's just horrible. It's just absolutely horrific. Okay, Marie, we can go to the next slide, and then I'll open it up for the room again. This is a little bit more about the most vulnerable, and another statistic which is really upsetting, should be upsetting to everyone. 1 in 5 gay and lesbian youth have been threatened or injured with a weapon on school property. And Black youth are 4 times more likely to be killed with guns than their white peers. Living in poverty is obviously seems to be a problem regarding gun violence, urban, rural, and 90% of teenagers killed in an act of dating violence were girls. So that is not shocking to me, because the #1 leading cause of murder for women is domestic violence. So it's just a lot of shocking statistics. It's hard to even take it in and process it. So thanks again, Anna, for putting this together, and for the Q codes in the corner for our audience. Let's go on to the next slide, and then I'd like to get some thoughts again from everyone. We said we were going to circle back around to mental illness, because in the media, obviously, and if you just talk about this with your neighbors or your colleagues, mental illness always comes up, because first of all, we want a reason, right? We want to understand why a 17-year-old in Sandy Hook and an 18-year-old in Texas and an 18-year-old in Columbine, why is this happening? Why are these children, literally they're still children, taking a gun and killing their classmates? We want to find a reason. We want to understand. So it's very quick to jump to, okay, let's find out, what is this person mentally ill? Were they mentally ill? But again, like Robert said, we're dealing with HIPAA, and how do we identify these young children who are struggling so desperately with their mental health that they would want to plan a school shooting? So let's go back to the room, and let's talk a little bit about this. I know everybody has different thoughts about this. So Anna, I want to start with you again, because you put all these statistics and facts together for us. And I want to hear a little bit about your feelings on those slides that we just shared.
Well, I think it is just really important to note, like, people with a diagnosed mental illness are more likely to be the victim than they are to be the perpetrator of a mass shooting event or acts of mass violence. And really, there's, we think of this profile of someone who just snapped, but really, like, there's a rational thought process and planning that goes into it. And it's just not fair to say, oh, well, they were probably just mentally ill. Oh, they were just crazy, because that's most of the time not the case. So I think we need to be really careful with associating mental illness with gun violence, because it's just not fair, and it adds stigma to people with mental illness.
Right. And she's completely right about that. Many people that, many individuals who are homeless and are schizophrenic and have mental illnesses, and because of their mental illnesses, they're homeless, they are attacked, killed on a daily basis, and we never hear about it.
Or people are scared to be diagnosed because they think,
right.
People are going to think I'm violent. People are going to be
Right.
afraid of me. And it's really something that we need to be very mindful of when we're talking about this, because it's just not true. And, you hear all of the politicians and the news and everything kind of perpetuating this, when, and you come to believe, like, your first thought is, oh, well, they probably had a mental illness. And that's usually not the case.
Right. The perpetrators of the mass shootings are not necessarily mentally ill. They have obviously something very wrong with them, but it doesn't mean that they're in a diagnosed category of mental illness. And so what Anna's saying is very true. We're stigmatizing people that are suffering in their own accord with their own personal mental illness, and they're not violent. They would never be violent. So it's just really important to highlight that. And thanks, Anna, for bringing that out. Robert?
I agree with Anna there, exactly. And as you said, the stigma that goes with accusing people that actually don't even probably own a gun, let alone want to do that kind of damage.
Right.
And the media has a habit of doing that. Society has that habit. And everybody jumps on this bandwagon accusing folks of something that they're not even diagnosed with having a problem.
Right.
They just woke up angry.
Right.
And happen to have a gun. And they want to take it out on the world. But we don't want to say that. We don't want to accept that part of it. We want to say, this is the reason. It's like having a car accident. I hit you, you hit me, and nobody can say, well, I did it. So we wait till the police come. We wait till the insurance company get involved. And then they decide who did it, instead of two grown folks deciding, well, I was at fault. Well, let's put the blame where the blame is. And that's the problem with that is that's very, very wide. I'm casting a wide line here, a wide net. I don't know who the blame is, because I'm even hearing, oh, the parents were at fault. Okay, the guy was 17, 18 years old. He made his own decisions. You have 13-year-olds that make their own decisions to do what they want to do. And now we're saying that, oh, it's the parents' fault because he made this decision. I don't know the parents and I don't know the situation, so I won't jump on that bandwagon. I don't know all the parameters behind that. So again, I'm gonna stick with what Anna just said, and I'm not going to try to stigmatize something that shouldn't be, and then I'm not going to try to accuse something that's not even a fact or even part of that. That's my input.
Right. Thank you, Robert. Excellent. We do not know the backstory of the family. We do not know the backstory of the grandmother. And nowadays with social media, everybody's hops on there and starts spouting off what they don't know anything really about, but they just want to join the conversation. So like you said, let's blame the parents. Let's blame the teachers. Why didn't they notice that he was having depression issues and anxiety issues or whatever might have been presenting before he started down this road? Then you could blame everybody on Facebook because he was on there and he was already showing dangerous behavior on Facebook. So let's blame everybody on Facebook. So, right. I appreciate what you said, Robert. And we that's not going to solve anything. Back to what Jeffrey said, what's the solution, right, to prevent this from happening again? Janice?
Sorry about that delay.
No worries.
Yeah, I'm going to address a couple of things and try to keep it to 2 minutes. First off, this guy, to me, I can't diagnose him because I do not have that credential.
Yeah.
However, when you abuse animals and people in your home are afraid of you and you're 18, you're a psychopath.
Yep.
Okay. And the best thing that could have happened was what happened to him. All right. And I hate to be that person, but I wish it had happened before he got into that school. So there was nothing that was going to change with this kid. All right. He was already going down that path, and he'd probably been going down that path for years. Now, what should not have happened is he should not have been able at 18 years old to go in and buy a mass killing machine with no background check. He bought 2 of them. I don't know about you. You can't do that here in California. You can't do that in New York. You can't, I'm sure you can't do it in Colorado, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me. Once you start abusing animals, personally, my empathy gets shut off. All right. Because you're already showing who you are. Okay. There's something that you weren't born with, and that's unfortunate, but the rest of society should not have to pay for that.
Right.
Now, there's 19 families broken forever because of this dude. And the mental health concern is not an issue because psychopathy is not a mental illness. It's a personality disorder. And if you're a psychopath, you're born that way. Sociopaths
right.
are made. Psychopaths are born. Some
That's
people
right.
are just born wrong. All psychopaths aren't violent. That's the other thing, is that, you know, there's something missing in them. They might not know what it is, but they lead normal lives. They don't make a decision to get up and go shoot a bunch of people because mommy cut off the phone. So the blame needs to be laid right where it needs to be. The individual and the state that allows people to buy army killing machines over the counter like it's a bottle of aspirin. That never should have happened. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Janice. Very well said. I appreciate your thoughts. Christopher?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're on. We can hear you.
Okay. Well, you know, I guess a big part of, like you said, you know, people like to group in the mental illness thing and diagnosis, but it's like you just have some people that are just, you know, like you said, at birth maybe naturally violent and have violent tendencies. And, you know, as long as people have been alive, people have done horrible things to other people, you know, even in the name of money, power, whatever the case may be. There's been countless genocides and, you know, near extinction of some people. So people have always done horrible things to other people. And unfortunately, that's something that we're never going to be able to get rid of. Deep down in the root of people's brain chemistry, you know, in birth or whatever, genetics that we don't understand, something goes wrong and people have less empathy and care, and they don't care about human life. Somebody will take your life tomorrow for a pair of shoes and they won't think twice about it. So, you know, that's always going to be an issue. And as far as getting access to certain firearms and stuff like that, there's always going to be people that are going to be able to slip through the cracks and find ways to do the horrible things that they want to do. You know, if somebody wants to go kill 17 people, if they think about it and plan about it and, you know, have this need to do it, they're going to find a way to do it, you know, whether they use a AR-15 style rifle or they steal a dump truck and run a bunch of people over, whatever the case may be. You know, death is death, and people doing horrible things to people are going to be an issue for a long time. So we just need to figure out a better way to see if we can, you know, find some of these people and get them help if it's possible to help some of them, you know. And that's going to be a huge uphill battle, because how do you identify somebody that, you know, is not recognizably diagnosable, you know, up front? It's just a huge battle. So a lot of times people want to immediately jump to gun laws and we need to stop this and we need to stop that. But I forgot who referenced this earlier. You know, there's tens of millions of rifles in the United States. I have a multiple rifles in my home right now, and they're not a threat to anybody except for myself if I was to do something stupid, because I know how to professionally handle them, and I don't have ill intent to do harm to anybody with them. They're purely for self-defense purposes, and that's only. So it's like I said, it's going to be a huge issue of figuring out the mental state of people and why people want to do harm to other people in these ways, especially with the school shooting stuff, where you got kids that just want to go murder other kids, for no apparent reason, really. So it's a really tough issue, and it's going to take a lot of work to figure it out.
Thank you, Christopher. Great comments, and thank you so much for that contribution. Marie?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think probably the hardest thing about all of this is, as somebody I feel that is kind of in the middle, like there's parts that I can easily agree with and disagree with everyone's point of view, and there's so who's to say that? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, because like I said, we can have the strictest laws imaginable, and Chris, like you said, if somebody really wants to, they're going to find a way. Just like there's for like mental health and mental illness, it's hard to categorize, because I don't think it's like I think Anna said, it's not a mental health issue. I think a lot of this is a trauma reaction for a lot of people, but not everybody reacts the same. Not everyone, even somebody that has gone through the same trauma or a similar trauma, I should say, nobody goes through the same trauma, but people that go through a similar kind of trauma don't go up and shoot a school. People react to things differently, and being able to figure out what leads somebody to I guess mobilize their pain in this fashion, like you don't have an answer to that. And just even talking about psychopathy or sociopathy, anybody can present risk factors and still not engage in that activity, and people who engage in the violence can have absolutely no signs of risk factors. So what do you do?
That's a great point, Marie. Thank you so much for sharing that from a social work therapy perspective. I'm going to have Anna go through the rest of our facts and research, and then Jeffrey and Ashman, I'm going to give you the opportunity to add your comments at the end here, because I want to be mindful of time. So Anna, if you want to take us through the rest of the research, and then we'll just do a final closing comments with everybody.
So once Marie shares, we've gotten through a lot of the statistics, the facts and figures. While we are talking about mental health, I think it's important to talk about the effects of trauma, the effects of gun violence. I think we just skipped a slide there. If you could go back one. So exposure to gun violence is obviously, like, we don't have to say it, it is traumatic. It is, you're going to have more distress, more depression, those kind of things. And then there is a cultural suffering and a cultural trauma of, these communities that have these horrible acts of violence. It kind of ripples outward. And, we could talk about this for a long time, especially as social workers, especially as therapists. But it has to be said, exposure to gun violence it's something that a lot of people are living with, obviously, especially for minority populations. And that is something that I think is worthy of being addressed as well. But we can keep moving forward. So there's this whole discussion of, okay, well, where do we come in? What are the solutions? So I just wanted to share this because it's kind of this cycle over and over again of there's a shooting, we have debates about it and we talk about it, nothing really happens, and then it just keeps going and going. So like, at what point do you come in and break that cycle? And I think that's really the big question. If you could go to the next slide. So we've talked a lot about different prevention strategies. Oh, back one. So there's, of course, everyone has their own ideas about where to intervene and how, or if we should intervene at all. So I just wanted to bring up some of the strategies here. That QR code, there's a great interview about a behavioral threat assessment. And if you scan that QR code, you can also see that just as another place to say, okay, this person is showing these signs, let's intervene. But we can keep moving forward. I know we're running kind of long here already, so I want to keep it moving. So this is from the Sandy Hook Promise Foundation. They have a list of 9 warning signs. So as we're talking about this, we want to be keeping these in mind and thinking about, okay, if someone at your child's school or someone in your workplace starts having one or more, especially a lot of these warning signs, and maybe you're friends with them on Facebook and they're bragging about having guns or talking about how they hate this minority population, that's something that should be cause for concern and should be brought to authority figures. So I just want to make that clear as well. And then I think on the next slide we have some resources as well. So again, all of these QR codes you can scan. You can look at these things and if you are struggling with mental illness, if you are struggling with trauma, there are resources out there, and I just want to make sure that we make those available to everyone as well. So Kat, we'll circle back to you and
Thank you, Anna. I really appreciate all the work you put into this. It's really important for people to know what, numbers are numbers, and sometimes people get caught up with numbers, but we need them. We need statistics because it helps us understand the broader picture, the scope of the problem. Because circling back to what Jeffrey said, we have to have solutions. So in order to have a solution, we have to know what we're dealing with. What is the problem? What is the scope of the problem? How bad is the problem? So these are things we need to know these. We need to know these stats and facts in order to work on a solution and work together, work across the aisle. And I know, Ashman, I know you mentioned that you're always willing to, you and I have had many debates. I'm obviously way more liberal than you are in a lot of my political leanings, but you and I have great debates. We have great conversation. We're still friends. And that's what bothers me right now in this country, is that we can't seem to have healthy debates anymore. It's like your way or my way. And that's upsetting to me because we will not solve things that way. I really believe that the American people want the same things. We want fairness for everyone. We want justice. We want equity. We don't want racism to be in our country anymore. I believe we want, fiscal responsibility, but yet we have it's like, I want to go this way to get there and you want to go this way. And we have to figure out how we meet in the middle. And I don't think we're doing a good job of that still in 2022. It's difficult. A lot, I think it was Jeffrey or Anna, you might've mentioned, we do need our legislators. We do need the senators and the congressmen, and we need help, but they seem to be battling each other all the time. And so we community members, we have to be the voice of reason. We have to be the ones to continue this dialogue and keep talking like this, have these panel discussions. So I just wanted to take just 30 seconds for Ashman, for you to any closing comments. It has to be brief because we're trying to stay within a window of time here for this recording. So if you just want to give us a brief final closing statement, that would be great.
Yes, really quickly, Janice said something about that, being able to get killing machines with no background checks. That is absolutely not true. Form 4473 that you have to fill out for every gun purchase. You're asked about your mental health, and it's a $200,000 fine and 10 years in jail if you lie about it.
But Ashman, I just have to say, Texas is way different though. You live in a state where you're more protected, as
no, Form 4473 is a federal form. You fill that out for every gun purchase everywhere in the United States. They run a background checks on you through the NICS system, There's
Okay.
nothing in there. You know, only thing is California makes you wait 10 days. The second
Which
thing
would
about
have saved,
18-year-olds,
which could have saved a lot of lives in this case in Texas, though. You have to agree with that, that it possibly a 10-day
No,
waiting period could have changed
no, I
things in
don't,
this
because
one.
no, because the San Bernardino shooters, they purchased their weapons legally with 10-round magazines, 10-day waiting checks, 10-day waiting period, and they went and did mass murder in San Bernardino. So if somebody's set on doing what they want to do, they're going to do it. 18-year-olds buying guns. If you can live on your own, make your own decisions at 18, I do believe that you should be able to defend your life. If you can go to the military and die for the country, you should be able to own a firearm to protect yourself. The vast majority of 18-year-olds are not going to commit mass murder, and they don't.
You're right.
And finally, and finally, gun laws don't protect anybody. They don't keep anybody safe. The shooter in New York purposely picked New York and Buffalo because he knew that the gun laws in New York would preclude him from being shot at back. Like he said that I picked a state with strong gun laws because I know people wouldn't be able to shoot back. I think that in the situation with schools, I think that we need to actually employ former veterans, have armed veterans at school, or have police at school. We need an armed presence at school. No, we don't have the luxury anymore of not having anybody armed at school. I feel like if old crusty Joe Biden has 24/7 armed security for himself and his family, and if banks, can protect money, a non-living thing, with guns, then I think that children should also be protected with guns as well. And that's my
Ashman, I appreciate you. I don't always agree with everything you say, but I always appreciate you and your knowledge. You're always well read and knowledgeable about these things. So thank you so much for being part of our expert panel today. Robert, I just wanted to get a few closing thoughts from you as a gun owner and as a gun safety advocate.
Okay, I am 100% in concurrence with what I think his name is Osman.
Ashman, yeah. Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, 100% in concurrence. If I can defend my country, I should be able to own a weapon. And here's the fact. At 18, you're considered an adult. Years old, you should be able to buy what you want to buy if you legally do it. And he named all the forms. That is absolutely correct. I live in West Virginia. I lived in California. I lived in Texas. I lived in New York. And to be honest with you, there's really no difference to obtain a gun. The rule is the rule across the board. So if that's something that you want to purchase, and that's your right to purchase, and I'm not even talking about the Second Amendment law. I'm just talking about just in general. If I work and I'm able to live on my own, defend my country, work a job, do my thing, I should be able to buy what I want to buy.
Okay.
If it's legal. If it's illegal, that's something totally different.
Right. And so I completely appreciate what both you gentlemen have said today, with what Christopher has added. I completely appreciate what Janice has added, Marie, Anna, and Jeffrey. From a social work perspective, and even just as a community member, I want to see that waiting period, because why not? Okay, so whenever you put in a law or you put in a policy, or in your community, let's say you're on the city council and you want to change where homeless people can sleep, right? Tell me why you want to do it. But then if you're against it, but tell me why not. So why not have a 10-day waiting period? If that even helps a little bit, if it could have helped, then I see you shaking your head, Ashman, but why not? What's the rush? I mean, if I want to get a gun, I have no problem waiting 10 days to clear a background check. Why is that a problem for all of you gun owners? Okay. So I'm just wanting to get the solutions here. We're going to have to wrap this up today. It's been awesome to speak with all of you. I appreciate you so much giving up your Saturday to talk about this. Happy to have another discussion about this where we could do a deeper dive into the solutions, because we can sit here all day. And like Jeffrey said, I can feel sick to my stomach now for the rest of the day, knowing what these 21 families are going through, 19 children, 2 parents. Also, anyone that did know the shooter, he's also a victim of sorts, because he's a victim in the sense that he is dead, and anybody that loved him and didn't know about what was going on with him is grieving as well. So we're talking about a lot of people that have passed away, and including the husband of one of the teachers has now died of a heart attack. So it is just horrible. It's senseless. It's just terrible. There's just no good word to use. So we have to have solutions. We have to have solutions to stop these mass shootings. And I would be happy to do this again with all of you in a month or two, where we could maybe dive into more solutions. What are some solutions? Those have to come from so many different areas, like Anna was saying. It has to come from school counselors, teachers, parents, the community, warning signs. Like in my son Christopher even said, sometimes there are no warning signs, and these terrible things are going to happen. So then how do we prevent the mass part of it, right? How do we protect the schools? How do we protect theaters? How do we protect baseball stadiums, football stadiums, places where these mass shootings can occur? Grocery stores. I mean, this just happened in a grocery store. So thank you everyone today for coming, for weighing in on this. Thanks to our audience for finding yourself on our YouTube channel or on our website, socialchangewarriors.org. I'm Catherine Page, founder and director, and I hope all of you have a very safe and happy Memorial Day weekend, and my deepest condolences to all the victims of the most recent shootings and any other shootings that have occurred where you have lost your family or loved ones. Take care, everyone.